Macedonia is located in the central part of the Balkan Peninsula, which is among Europe's biologically most diverse regions. The key reasons for such great biodiversity are its varied relief, different climate and milder exposure to glaciations in the past. A unique set of geological, climatic and man-made factors have combined to make the Balkans, with Macedonia in its central part, one of the most biologically intriguing and valuable areas in the Northern Hemisphere. Many species have repopulated their former grounds elsewhere in Europe by setting forth from this particular area. Moreover, the country is clearly important as a meeting point for the biodiversity of 3 continents. The zone above the timberline, stretching to the highest mountain peaks, is known as the High Mountain Belt. It is made up of pastures and rocky grounds. The zone accounts for 1.5% of the country's area, and combined, it would cover an expanse 6 times the size of, say, Manhattan. As the ice from the Ice Age receded some 12,000 years ago, species now considered to be glacial relicts moved to the mountain's higher areas. Here and there, glacial lakes remained, nestled in the cirques that the glaciers had carved into the mountainsides. Many of these pastures would also be covered by scrubs and forests now, were it not for sheep breeding, as flocks of grazing sheep have maintained them in their current condition. Only 50 years ago there were 2 million head of sheep. Nowadays their number has dwindled to a mere 500,000. The wetlands in this highland belt evince the boreal or North European ecosystem. Though they are scarce, they are important for the country's biodiversity as habitats of many species of plants, insects and amphibians, like this alpine newt. The European ground squirrel, a strictly protected species in the country, lives on lowlands elsewhere in Europe. Intriguingly, only on Mount Jakupitsa it lives a high life in zones above 2,000 meters. What used to be the Iron Curtain, a long stretch left unaffected by human intervention for decades where nature could freely take its course, has recently been retermed the Green Belt. All but one of the country's borders are part of this European Green Belt. The country's natural timberline is at about 2,200 meters above sea level, though the actual timberline is currently about 300 to 500 meters lower. Nevertheless, the decline in sheep breeding has allowed some plant species to begin reconquering their former lofty grounds. And though these woods have been used for timber for as long as man has inhabited these lands, their current distribution much resembles the original one. Almost 40% of the country's territory is under forests today. This is the endemic Balkan Molika pine on Mount Pelista, which is one of the few places where it forms continuous forests. A small population of the Eurasian Lynx resides in the western part of this wooded expanse. Their population is seeing a dramatic decline and already meets the IUCN criteria for a critically endangered animal. Fortunately, theirs is a species vastly outnumbered by the wealth of insect and bird species that thrive in these habitats. Some of these woods are used for non-timber forest products, such as the chestnut forests on the Shah Mountain. Macedonia's rivers belong to 3 drainage basins: the Aegean, the Adriatic, and the Black Sea basins. They are home to a variety of species such as stone crayfish and trout. Most mountain rivers are no longer in their natural condition, having been modified for irrigation or hydro-energy production. However, according to European reports, they are in much better shape than those in the rest of Europe. The Balkan rivers have been termed the blue heart of Europe. Many of them run through gorges teeming with ancient life. Gorges here are refugia, a refugium being an area that has escaped major climate changes during the glaciation. Macedonia's gorges are home to a wealth of endemic species, such as these violets and elshar. These were once the haunts of various species of vultures, but recently we have witnessed the complete extinction of the bearded and black vultures from Macedonia, coupled with a dramatic decline of the griffon and of the endangered Egyptian vulture, chiefly because access to chemicals used for poisoning wolves is relatively easy in the country. Until 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, the country's lowlands were either under forests or were floodplains. Some 60 or 70 years ago, in the wake of World War II, intensive melioration was undertaken to wrench arable land from the landscape and to eradicate malaria. These areas have since been home to a large variety of indigenous commercially bred species. The Macedonian steppes, or rather dry lands and grasslands, much resembling the surface of swelling seas, can be found in the lowland belts of the central part of the country, owing primarily to the permanent degradation of forest plant communities. Many species, having come from Central Asia, have actually survived the Ice Age here because of their ability to endure extreme temperature variations on these geologically very diverse soils. Lake Ohrid and Lake Prespa are probably Macedonia's most important ecosystems. They make a single connected system whose biological age has been estimated at between 2 and 3 million years. Lake Ohrid is the oldest of the European lakes and is one of the greatest hotspots of endemic flora and fauna. With its 212 endemic species, it stands out in the world as the lake with the greatest diversity per area. There are 10 endemic fish species, such as the Ohrid trout. Another instance of a globally important ecosystem is that of the Lesser and Greater Prespa Lakes. It accommodates the largest breeding population of the Dalmatian pelican in the world. The north part of Prespa comprises the protected area of Ezerani, a marshland ecosystem which is the habitat or a stopover place for many species of aquatic birds. The preservation of these marshland ecosystems is vital to the health of the lakes. Over the past decades, both intentionally and otherwise, the lakes have been populated with non-indigenous fish species, but also with mammals such as the koipu, whose population has been increasing. Though Macedonia is outstanding in the degree to which its ecosystems have survived in certain regions, even if in a modified state, more recently there has been marked acceleration in environmental degradation, due in a large part to agricultural intensification and poor planning of resource exploitation. What is now required in order to allow significant improvements in Macedonian biodiversity conservation is a concerted attempt at establishing formal conservation policies based on integrated and sustainable ecosystem management.